So I'm here presenting on behalf of the Lunar Spatial Data Infrastructure. You can see a listing of our members over there on the right. It's a broad community-based effort. Next slide, please. So I want to lead with who is this talk for. This talk is for data producers, the makers, the people that are creating things, data products to be shared with the community. This talk is for instrument and mission teams who want to use multiple existing data sets, whether for planning or for organizing data for rapid post-collection use. So either internally, say for targeting, or externally for just getting it out to the community. The talk's for data users, so that's a huge broad umbrella of anyone that wants discoverable, usable data with known provenance, with as little pre-analysis processing as possible. And so I'll talk about what that means in a few slides. The talk is for tool and front-end developers, so those are all of the computer science nerds that are out there writing the tools that we all use day in and day out to collect our data and do our analyses. So the really big implications are we focus a lot on data, the usable operational data, and we are trying to make sure that they're known to work together and that they have good, high quality, peer-reviewed documentation. So like, who are we about us? Next slide, please. We started in 2021, piggybacked off of a successful Europa SDI launch. We started with Europa because the community is significantly smaller, and then we've transitioned to also working with the Lunar community, obviously significantly bigger, a lot more data, much more heterogeneous. We're a group of interested scientists, data nerds, geospatial experts, metadata experts, et cetera, who have all come together to say there's an amazing wealth of data, and we're about to be inundated with even more data. And it's not necessarily easy for these data to interoperate, and you need a lot of expertise. We think that's something that we can help with. It's community driven, like I said. Members have participated in NASA's PDE, the Lunar Critical Data Products Group. They sit on mission teams. So we've attempted to get a really broad swath of people on our working group committee. We work at the intersection of MAPSET and the AGs, so League for the Moon, OPAG for Europa. Since you're sitting at a computer right now, I would suggest go ahead and check out our website, psdi.astrogeology.usgs.gov. Moon will take you right to Moon. It's a USGS hosted website only because that was the easiest place to get it hosted. So what are the key takeaways that I'm hoping that you leave with after this presentation? We are community driven. We coordinate standards, and our goal is to make it so that you can think a lot less about spatial standards, because there is a menu of spatial standards to be able to pull from and select from, and a checklist that says, yes, my data is conformant, compliant, we know it's going to work together, or here are some things I can do to remediate my data. The data that we're promoting are compliant with the FAIR standards. They're compliant with SPD 41A. They're well documented, they're interoperable, and they all follow the same spatial standards. So that falls back to what Brent was talking about 2 talks ago, where the underlying foundational spatial standards are essential to make sure that the data are interoperable for everyone. One of the things that we want to do, and I'll talk about it a little later, is we want to work with you to help you release and promote Lunar SDI standards compliant data. So while we're the spatial experts, we're not necessarily the data experts for all these heterogeneous data sets. And so we're at a point now where we're looking to work with data producers, the makers of the data, to help them release data that we can then help promote to the community, saying these data will interoperate. Next slide, please. So what gap are we filling? First, PDS does an absolutely remarkable job. It is obviously the archival location of choice. We're working from a position where we say the PDS is for archived data. And those data can be challenging to pull from the archive, process to a form that's usable, and then perform your analysis. And so we are attempting to fill that gap that exists between the PDS and our data users. We posit that interoperable analysis-ready data are generally not available to the public. If you don't believe me, check out the PDE and multiple PDS roadmaps, and you will see the broad community saying, hey, These data are not necessarily highly usable yet. We're also concerned about an ad hoc creation of analysis-ready data, A, because there's not a good definition of analysis-ready data yet, and B, because we see that once disparate groups start working on things without the same consistent standards, we end up, again, with a really heterogeneous landscape. That's just going to make it harder for folks to use data. So we're looking to fill that gap between the PDS and all of the data consumers. Next slide, please. Goals, we want to stand on the shoulders of the terrestrial geospatial community. In many ways, they have figured out how to deal with vast quantities of data, different scales, different veracity, different variety, all of the V's. We're building off of the terrestrial community standards, so FAIR, OGC, SDIs. Do no harm, don't reinvent the wheel. That's where we're standing. We have published and are promoting standards and policies to make lunar analysis-ready data discoverable, interoperable, and ultimately exploitable for the whole community. And we want to make sure that lunar lunar ARD are governed under the auspices of a lunar SDI, and making sure that data are available with the highest standards and high quality human readable documentation. So you don't have to dig into a technical expert level corpus of literature to be able to start using the data. Next slide, please. What makes lunar SDI promoted data better? Why would you want to use these? Why not just go to the archive? First, these are curated by experts. They have known properties. These data interoperate. The data have human readable documentation, quantitative and qualitative. The qualitative one is a major missing component right now for a lot of data sets. All the data have consistent geospatial underpinnings. And so as we see, for example, the MEPA issue, if you will, play out, the lunar SDI will be able to adapt to that to ensure that all these data that we are wanting people to use are consistent. These are data that have the best available geometric, photometric, radiometric corrections, or are documented describing where there are issues. These are data that are available in formats that are cloud native, that just work in your GISs, that you can pull down and do a minimal to no additional processing before analysis. And then one of the big ones now recently, these data are all AI ML ready. So you can take them and use them in your machine learning pipelines. Next slide, please. So where are we in our process? We've adopted a governance model, so we all know how to act, to behave, and manage ourselves. We've recently adopted a set of standards, and so we've gotten pretty significant community input on those, and went from some very stringent standards to very stringent documentation requirements and more flexible standards. And we're beginning the process of doing outreach to data producers, the makers, and pairing them with data providers like the USGS, who can help to serve or reserve their data. And so we understand that many in the community don't have resources to update older data sets or the knowledge to meet the standards. We exist because we want to help with that. We can help you reprocess. We can help you provide or share your data. And our help is offered as a broad a la carte menu. So what does that mean? That means we could help you by consulting. We could help you by collaborating on a data release proposal. We can help you to coordinate with the USGS so that the USGS can release data, et cetera. And so we exist as a service to the broader community to help get data out to users in consistent, discoverable, interoperable way that meets all of these requirements that we have, whether it's FAIR, SPD 41A, et cetera. And then last but not least, we hope that you will reach out and chat with us. You can email us. There's a list in the About page. You can email me directly, jlaura@usgs.gov, and I will forward it on. You can ask your NASA point of contact. Like Sarah knows how to get in touch. Robin knows how to get in touch. So yeah, you can absolutely reach out and get in touch. And last slide is just a segue into the Q&A session. Thank you very much for your attention and your time.